G'day and welcome to the video. Today we're diving into one of the core concepts in Age of Empires 4, counters, how they work and why they matter. This is just part 1 of our guide, where we'll focus entirely on the standard units. So whether you're new to the game or a veteran looking for a refresher, this guide will hopefully help you understand the most common unit matchups in AOE 4. Keep an eye out for the next video in the series where we'll cover unique units and how to deal with them. Let's start with the basics. What is a counter? In Age of Empires 4, a counter is a unit that performs significantly better against a specific type of enemy unit in direct combat. These counters generally fall into 2 categories, hard and soft counters. A hard counter is a one-sided matchup. It's typically defined by 2 things. The first is bonus damage. For example, spearmen deal roughly triple their base damage to cavalry. Horsemen deal about double damage to archers, and archers deal double damage to spearmen. While these aren't literal multipliers in the game code, the values are close enough so that it feels that way in practice. The second is cost efficiency. A counter must trade favourably in terms of resource cost. A bonus isn't useful if you're still losing more value than your opponent. Soft counters don't typically rely on bonus damage, but still win matchups thanks to any number of factors, such as better mobility, range, or armor. For instance, archers don't get bonus damage versus crossbows, but they're cheaper with similar health and damage, so will come out ahead in an equal resource fight. Now let's take a look at the core units in the game, along with a few siege options. I originally thought about throwing up a diagram. Just draw a few arrows between unit types and show how spearmen counter horsemen, horsemen counter archers, and so on. But it got messy fast. Even before I add soft counters, which I'll put in as red to help with the metaphor, it starts to look like a plate of spaghetti. Makes sense to everyone, right? No? Yeah. Let's take a step back. Initially, I planned to include rams, trebuchets, and riboldequins, but after some thought, I decided to leave out riboldequins since they're more of a unique unit, and honestly it doesn't feel necessary to go into siege units whose sole job is to take down buildings. Let's begin with the feudal age triangle: spearman, horseman, and archer. Almost every civ has access to these 3 units in feudal, and they form the foundation of the AOE 4 counter system. Spearmen hard counter cavalry, and I mean hard. They deal huge bonus damage and can brace to stun and negate a cavalry charge. They cost only 1/3 of a knight, so you'll still need more than 1 spearman per knight to win cleanly, but against horsemen the fight is hilariously one-sided in favour of the spear. Their weaknesses are low base damage, no armour, and low mobility, so they trade poorly against all ranged units as well as men-at-arms and mangonels. While bombards technically deal bonus damage, I can't call them a hard counter due to the slow fire rate. As for the hard counters, archers and springalds both deal bonus damage plus can hit from range. Avoid this fight, especially if your opponent has room to kite. Horsemen hard counter ranged units and siege. This includes archers, crossbows, and hand cannons. They're fast and mobile, great for flanking and chasing down vulnerable backlines. But mass matters. The bigger the group of ranged units, the less favourable it becomes for horsemen. Ranged units can fire continuously, while horsemen have to navigate around to engage, which delays their impact. Due to bonus damage, horsemen also make short work of all basic siege types. They're soft countered by armoured units like knights and men-at-arms, which soak up much of the damage. That being said, they can usually outrun bad matchups thanks to superior speed. They are hard countered by spearmen, though there's an argument to be made that knights fall into this category as well. I personally consider them only a soft counter. Archers hard counter light melee and light gunpowder infantry, like spearmen and hand cannons. They soft counter other ranged units, mostly due to cost efficiency. You can field more archers for the same resources, and in large numbers that advantage adds up. In turn, they are soft countered by armoured units like men-at-arms and knights, who can negate most of the incoming damage. Many would consider the knight as a hard counter, and it's a close call, so I won't judge you if you're one of them. Archers are hard countered by horsemen and mangonels. Mangonel is the worst enemy of a ranged death ball. as the area damage can quickly delete dozens of units, while smaller groups quickly fall to charging horsemen. Despite getting bonus damage against them, bombards trade roughly evenly, so I haven't put them in this list. Now let's move on to the standard castle age units. These are the backbone of most mid to late game armies and introduce a little more nuance into the counter system. Men-at-arms don't deal bonus damage, but they make up for it with high armour. This makes them effective soft counters to all standard feudal age units. They are then soft countered in turn by knights as well as bombards, which both usually trade well against men-at-arms. The worst matchup by far is against the crossbow, which has a ranged attack, bonus damage and enough mobility to kite. In large fights, springles also pose a serious threat. They can hit from a distance and damage multiple targets at once, making them particularly dangerous against slow-moving, clumped-up infantry. Knights are one of the most versatile units in the game. Like men-at-arms, they don't deal bonus damage. However, due to high armour, damage and mobility, they are effective soft counters to archers, men-at-arms, horsemen and siege. Knights are hard countered only by spears, though by using their mobility, they can choose engagements where they have an advantage. If a knight finds a lone spearman, they can win easily, then return home to be healed. Crossbows hard counter heavy units, most notably men-at-arms and knights. Men-at-arms have the worst time since they lack the mobility of a knight, while knights can still win a fight against undefended crossbows by quickly closing the gap. They soft counter light melee units due to their ranged attack and ability to kite, and also trade well into hand cannons at equal cost. Their hard counters are light cavalry and mangonels for the exact same reason as archers. As we move into the Imperial Age, unit power spikes dramatically. These units are often expensive, population efficient, and game defining, but they also come with major vulnerabilities if used carelessly. Handcannoneers don't deal any bonus damage, but they don't really need to. Their base damage is so high that they can become the core of any late game army. They're the glass cannons of AOE 4. Low health, no armour, and extremely vulnerable when caught out. To be effective, they need a strong front line or a meat shield to absorb damage while they deal it. They soft counter slow melee units like men-at-arms and spearmen due to the ability to kite, and they trade effectively against springles. Crossbows are a soft counter due to their greater range and better cost efficiency. But the worst matchups are against mangonels, whose area damage is devastating to grouped handcannoneers, horsemen, which are fast and cheap, and even archers due to the bonus damage. Finally, we move on to siege. The Springald has seen big changes since release. It functions now as an anti-melee infantry and an anti-naval unit. They fire piercing bolts that travel through targets to strike those behind. As such, they do best in large-scale standing fights where they can rip through dense infantry formations. All ranged units pose a threat though, since Springalds have a relatively low ranged resistance and a very limited ability to run away. Even mangonels and bombards will trade well against a Springald. As with all siege, they are hard countered by horsemen. I've also included knights on this list since the fight is so one-sided even without any bonus damage. The mangonel gets bonus damage towards buildings, naval units, and excels in fighting ranged units, especially large groups where the area damage can come into play. They also trade well with spearmen, as they are slow and have no armour, though this only applies to massed units and requires a front line. The first bad matchup is the bombard. Like the Springald, it's just not a cost-effective fight. The hard counters are cavalry. Horsemen with the bonus damage and knights with high base damage and a charge can shred unguarded mangonels in seconds. Finally, we have the bombard, the late game siege monster. With the exception of naval units and buildings where the bombard really shines, I don't consider any of them to be hard counters, as the trades just are never that efficient. Soft counters include all other siege, plus slow melee infantry units like men-at-arms and spearmen, since they can't close the distance quickly enough to avoid substantial damage. If you include a front line to defend, the melee units just don't stand a chance. Hard counters are the same for all other siege. Horsemen and knights obliterate bombards if they can close the distance. It's important to remember that this is a complex and situational game. Siege and most range units require a front line to defend them. Melee units fall off when against ranged masses. Walls can completely deny cavalry from flanking archers, and of course, blacksmith upgrades, unit positioning, and micro can all swing a fight. Hopefully this guide has helped you make sense out of the counter system in Age of Empires. Keep an eye out for the next video where we'll look at unique units like the Mangudai and elephants and how to deal with them effectively. That's it from me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.